news events. We have some literal breaking news right now. We talked about this yesterday, but I did a little bit of a more detailed exposition on the Strait of Hormuz, the 21-mile shipping lane, 6 miles wide. 20% of the world's global oil supply goes through the Strait of Hormuz. 30 to 33% of the world's fertilizer supply goes through the Strait of Hormuz. Major insurance companies dropped shipping backing of the vessels which transit this. Something like 153 vessels every single day pass through the Strait of Hormuz carrying shipping items, supplies, fertilizer, fuel, petroleum, liquid natural gas, and the Strait of Hormuz is closed. Welcome to the Ignition News. We are now breaking live that as many as 3 ships today have been hit in the Strait of Hormuz, essentially freezing global shipping in the Strait. This is going to have a massive, massive impact. And you may be thinking to yourself, we get only 3% of our oil from the Strait of Hormuz, from the Gulf region specifically, excuse me. Well, the reality is that's how it works hemispherically. The rest of the world gets their oil, largely 20% of the global supply, from the Strait of Hormuz. We may well be looking at oil at $300 per barrel. Let us check the price of oil right now. Oil per barrel cost right now is about $91 right now as of the time of this, oh wow, it spikes to over 110. That's insane. Currently $86 per barrel. We are going to see $300 per barrel of oil. This will exponentially increase the price of everything, because everything that you purchase, use, everything that you need for your daily life, unfortunately, we've been trying to tell you this. We've been trying to tell you that our dependence on oil and foreign oil, specifically petroleum, plastics, and here we are in the midst of a global conflict. This oil shutdown is going to eclipse the 1973 oil embargo by 3. The 1973 oil embargo impacted 7% of the global oil supply. The Strait of Hormuz accounts for 20%. And now today, breaking live on the show, we're here to inform you, unfortunately, 3 ships have been struck purportedly by Iran. They were near the Strait of Hormuz, and this is absolutely devastating to any sort of idea that this conflict is going to end anytime soon. This is where the president has failed to understand that the Iranian people have been living under brutal conditions for 47 years. They've been living with sanctions. They've been living with their own access to resources cut off. They've had to learn how to do all the things that are now empowering them to, quite candidly, leave us flat-footed. They've had to learn how to get access to resources and sanctions. They've had to learn how to illegally sell their oil and transit and transport their oil. They've had to learn how to hide their weapons caches. And now we're seeing the great brute force of the United States military is not stopping Iran, but it is stopping the global economy. How does this cascade, you may be asking yourself? Well, welcome everyone to the Ignition News. I got right into the major story because it is breaking news today. And that, again, if you're just tuning in, is that 3 ships have been struck in the Strait of Hormuz. The president thought that this was going to be an in and out like Venezuela. We thought we could pay people off, go bomb a few things, take out the leaders, and it would sort itself out. But it turns out that in Iran, it's not like the United States, or it's not like Venezuela. While, of course, Iran is a corrupt government, it's a brutal dictatorship, they've also been dealing with the oppression of the West and Israel for decades. And now we replaced a Khomeini with a Khomeini. And by the way, in case you didn't know, we killed the wife and daughter of the new leader of Iran in these strikes. Do you think this man is going to come to the table to negotiate with us? Do you think the leader of Iran, who we have killed his father, his wife, and his child, the girls' school, which was hit, 175 people dead by a Tomahawk missile. The president won't admit it, but it was the United States. Initially a double tap. And to be very clear, a double tap is when you strike something and then you strike it again to kill the people coming to rescue them. But it now looks like it may have actually been a triple tap. Well, guess what? Who was attending that girls' school? The children of top military officials in Iran. Do you think they are going to want to come to the table? And after all, what happened when they came to the table last time? The United States lied and committed a war crime. Lying under the premise of negotiation. The United States said, we're going to negotiate a peace agreement with you. And while we were under the ruse of negotiating a peace agreement, we took out their top leadership, which does three things. Number one, it destroys any good faith, if any existed at all, that we would have a negotiated settlement to the situation in Iran. Number two, it has unfortunately put us in a situation where the remaining leadership in Iran has seen their family killed by the United States and Israel. That does not make us safer. And number three, it teaches every other country in the world two things. Number one, if you are afraid of the United States, you have to have nuclear weapons now. And number two, if you negotiate with the United States about your peace and about your partnership, they might just kill you anyway. We are in dangerous times now, led by a clown car of Nazis. And this is the result. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Ignition News. I did tell you I was getting right into the main story today, and this is going to be the main story because the economic cascade of what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz is going to be disruptive. It is springtime right now. What happens in springtime? Farmers plant. The Strait of Hormuz is a global shipping lane for fertilizer. 30% of the world's fertilizer supply has been cut off. If farmers are able to get access to that fertilizer now, it will be certainly more expensive, and they may not be able to access it at all, which means they may not be able to plant. And if they do plant, they may have to use, for example, more harmful chemicals, or the yields of those crops may be less, which further exacerbates the cost of your food. When the price of food goes up in India, the price of food goes up in America. When the price of food goes up in China, the price of food goes up in America. When the cost of fuel goes up, the cost to get the package to your door goes up. When the cost of fuel goes up, the cost of toys at Christmas go up. When the cost of fuel goes up, other countries like the Philippines are having to drastically implement energy-saving methods because they're candidly afraid that they're going to run out of petroleum. In the Philippines, they have mandated a 4-day work week. In Australia, they're having open conversations about how long their fuel supplies will last. All of this recklessness, all of this warmongering, there is no plan. And the thing about a war with no plan, a war with no plan is a war with no end. This war will not end because there is no mechanism to end it. We have a president incompetent, unable to do anything, unable to make basic decisions about anything other than the curtains. We have a global military conflict led by Pete Hegseth and his fragile masculinity. We have no negotiating partners. No one to come to the table with Iran to end this war. And we're not going to bomb them into submission. I would like you to introduce yourself to the last 30 years of conflict in the Middle East, if you don't believe that. The Strait of Hormuz is a now dangerous place to transit fuel, fertilizer, goods, and there's no sign that this is ending. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Ignition News. Let us go ahead and get into the rest of the stories today. I'm going to take a brief pause to ask you to please kindly consider following us on your favorite news platform, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcast, Twitch, Substack. We're broadcasting live on TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, Substack right now, but we do upload the shows and shows which are not recorded live to the Ignition News on your favorite podcast platform. If you're not sure how to find us on theignition.news. And it is a wild day. Let me lighten the mood a little bit before we get into the rest of the stories. What has happened on today? Well, in 1702, the first issue of the Daily Current was published in London. It was the first successful daily newspaper in England, like the Ignition News. See? In 1888, the Great Blizzard of 1888 began. 50 inches of snow on the United States East Coast, and it caused more than 400 deaths. And of course, this is wild to think how long it has been. But in 2011 was that massive earthquake that was off the coast of Japan. The huge tsunami happened, and then famously the Fukushima nuclear disaster. 2011, it feels like yesterday. Time flies fast, does it not? Let's see. In 1927, the Roxy Theater opened in New York. And what else? Johnny Knoxville was born in 1971. Quick question. Why do seagulls fly over the sea? Why do seagulls fly over the sea? Because if they flew over the bay, they would be bagels. Okay. What's the difference between a hippo and a zippo? One is very heavy. One is very heavy. The other is a little lighter. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Why did the Scarecrow win an award? This one you've heard before. Because he was outstanding in his field. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you. This show is broadcast live on TikTok. We are moderated, and I would just say to the moderators, no mercy, no patience. Go. Let's get on to the next story. It's that time of day. Let's move into domestic news. I apologize. Obviously, we just talked about Iran, all of the conflict. One of the things we haven't seen, we've seen all this chaos in the military. What we have not seen is we have not seen any action from Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer. Of course, we previously reported to you that the insider information about Schumer, and likely Jeffries as well, seeing as how they're both well-funded by AIPAC, was that they are actually okay with regime change in Iran. And of course, their opinion of what their strategy is to do is to let this become a clusterfuck. And their opinion is that this clusterfuck will be so bad that it will result in massive sweeping electoral victories for Democrats in the elections. This is, of course, while they have done nothing to protect the upcoming elections while the president is openly attacking the elections. We are now learning that there are intelligence threats, that there may be some type of cyber operation from Iran. Of course, we don't know if that's actually a thing or if that's just actually a government cover-up saying that. Can anyone say false flag, by the way? Now I'm about to get my warning on TikTok. I can feel it. So you've got the government saying there could be an attack on infrastructure, digital infrastructure, a president ready to pull the trigger on an executive order, and you have Chuckles and Hakeem Jeffries doing nothing. Well, there are growing calls in the caucus for them to step down. 89% of Democrats oppose the war, but Schumer and Jeffries are not doing anything. Schumer, for his part, closed out the Senate floor debate by accidentally saying, and this happened in real time, he actually said this: no one wants a nuclear Israel. Well, that's the truest fucking thing I've ever heard you say. He did correct himself immediately, but that slip is going to follow him everywhere. And whether that is voters at home or whether that is his own caucus, it's not even a call. It is essential that Schumer and Jeffries step down. And I will take a brief pause here to say, sometimes we act, what are our action items? What are the action steps we take? Well, the action steps we take are as followed. We cannot have Chuck Schumer. We cannot have Hakeem Jeffries. And when you speak to your representatives, when you vote, you have to vote with that in mind. You have to vote and understand that 93% of the Senate receives funding from AIPAC. And so when you're getting ready for your midterm elections, selecting that candidate, you're going to need to make sure that you are being mindful of who you're voting for. And I would recommend to you that we need to vote them all out. We'll get into that more later. The cascade of this all is quite stunning. Our second story, you of course know Marjorie Taylor Greene stepped down. They had to have a special election. And in that special election, the Democrat Sean Harris received more total votes, with 17 candidates on the ballot than any other Republican. Sean Harris came in first with 37% of the vote. The Trump endorsed Republican finished at 35%. It is now heading to a runoff. Well, when you put 12 Republicans on the same ballot, of course, they do split the vote. Sean Harris picked up the remainder of that. That's not any kind of necessary sign that, that he's going to win the election. But he did technically finish first. They're going to tell you, of course, that the split vote doesn't mean anything, but we need to keep our eyes on that seat and see what happens. And the next one is I'm going to infer some things here. So I want to be very clear with you that I'm beginning to piece together information to make what I believe is an assessment about what the United States government is doing. I will preface this by saying that this is my assessment and that I am building this story in real time. I want to draw back to the conversation about the girls' school in Iran. And I have a simple question. First of all, I am not going to be goaded into saying the U.S. allegedly struck the school. The United States government struck the school with Tomahawk missiles. That's what happened. An alleged triple tap now. But my question is not if we struck the school. My question is who picked the target? Follow me if you will. We know, of course, that Anthropic recently got into a bit of a tussle with the United States government, said it didn't want its technology to be used for autonomous killing. In other words, killing people without a human in the loop. They also didn't want mass surveillance. The government said, no, we're going to do the autonomous killing thing and the mass surveillance thing, or we're going to cancel you. Trying to cancel them. And of course, Anthropic is suing the government. But the question now I ask you, is the United States government currently using autonomous AI targeting? The military says no. They say there's always a human being in the loop. But there's a system called the Maven, and the entire system of that automated targeting system is to make it faster, to process data, to select targets, and to go fast. There were 2,000 strikes in the first 24 hours of Operation Epic Fury. So I'm asking you the question. What United States citizen, what good faith acting American soldier, they're called targeters, by the way, what good faith human being would pick a girls' school to send 2 Tomahawks, allegedly now 3? Or was it artificial intelligence? Is the United States government using autonomous weapons targeting? It seems impossible that we would have selected 2,000 targets in a 24-hour window. And it seems impossible for me to believe that a citizen of this country, of the United States of America, would willingly choose to target a girls' school. But an artificial intelligence, well, that's a different story. There was something called Police Park in Iran that was also struck. Police Park is exactly that. It is a park only. There is no infrastructure at Police Park. In my own community, we have a police memorial park 4 blocks from my house. Did the AI system target Police Park because it said Police Park? I think it is looking increasingly likely that the United States government is in fact using autonomous weapons technology, and that in spite of what they're saying, that they are removing humans from the loop. How else could you explain bombing a girls' school? How else could you explain that? Even the worst of us, I can't imagine, would ever sign off on that. But an AI, I think that's a different story. This is a serious conversation because if we are, in fact, using autonomous weapons targeting, tracking, and now killing, Skynet's here, baby. Like, I hate to tell you. And the worst part of it is it's not run by capable, intelligent, moral people. Pete Hegseth is on like his, I don't know, 700th marriage. He apparently loves to like get married to women and get other women pregnant. That's really moral. That sounds really ethical. He spent $93 billion, $7 million on Lobster Tail in the month of September. It's not an ethical individual. Something tells me that if he can use a shortcut like autonomous weapons technology, that he will. And if the machines start, I know this sounds crazy. Admittedly, this sounds crazy. But if the machines start deciding who they're going to start killing, we have in fact lost our soul. That line is an impermissible moral line to cross. And we're tracking it, we're following it. My intuition tells me that yes. I can't say it factually. I'm trying to be as clear as I can. But my intuition tells me that that girl's school was struck because the United States government was using an artificial intelligence tracking technology, that they had to select a massive amount of targets, and that things fell through the cracks, and now there are dead children. And I say that because there doesn't seem to be any other sensible explanation. And if that doesn't make you outraged, I don't know what will. So, how do these stories tie together? Well, we have no more constitution. The president launched an unconstitutional war. The Democratic leadership, soaked in pro-Israel money, is afraid of their own political shadows and is slow walking any sort of stop to this. The economy is in free fall. Now, 3 ships have been struck in the Strait of Hormuz. Global shipping is in literal jeopardy, the scale of which will eclipse COVID if it doesn't slow down. And in Georgia, like everywhere, people are tired. We are now living in the greatest political divide in the history of your lifetime. But it is not the divide between Democrats and Republicans. That line has already been drawn. We are living through a true proletariat working class moment versus the bourgeoisie or the petite bourgeoisie, the capitalists, the political class, the Epstein class. If they are willing to, without any kind of moral distinction, kill children, then they place no value on your life. We have to know that. So what are the concrete action steps? Well, my concrete action step for you today is quite simple. You need to find out, when is your primary election? They're happening right now, actually. We just talked about that. There was a primary election in Texas, James Tallarico beating out Jasmine Crockett. They're happening now. It's the season where farmers should be planting seeds. You should be planting the seeds of your democracy. If you don't know when your primary election is, you're failing yourself, your family, and your community. So you need to go to vote.org and find out when is the day that you go to the polls and decide who is going to be your representative. I'm not talking about the general election. The general election is on November 3rd, to the best of my knowledge. I have to, someone fact check that, because it'd be really fucked up if it was not on November 3rd. Please, someone fact check that in the comments. I'm going to fact check it live because I don't want to. When is the general election? November 3rd. Come on. November 3rd. Okay. Yes. Important. It's important that we don't spread misinformation about when the election is. But in your community right now, let's just say you live in Jeffrey's district or Schumer's district. Schumer's not up for election right now, but Jeffries definitely is. There's going to be a primary, and you need to find out when that primary is. You need to find out, do you need to be registered or tied to a certain party to vote in that? And if you do, then you need to be registered to that party. And then number 4, you need to vote these fuckers out. Every single one of these, I can't say the word. I'll get canceled. You need to find them. The good news is it's easy because 93% of your senators take AIPAC money, for example, or have not stopped this war. Or, I mean, your Congress by default, unless they're currently signing on to the War Powers Resolution, that means implicitly that they support killing children. And so you need to find that person and find out who is not that person. And you need to vote for the person that is not that person. And then you need to tell your friends about it. Go download our podcast, Ignite, Fighting Fascism in the Age of Its Rise. Learn how to create a voter guide for your community and tell your friends. Because the thing is, not everyone is as smart as you. Do you not realize this by now? You're fucking smart. That's why you're here. You're tuned in. So you got 10 friends. They might not even be your friends. They're just people who follow you on Facebook fucking 12 years ago. Go out and put this shit out there because they don't trust anyone. No one trusts the media. No one trusts politicians. So go and tell them when to vote and who to vote for. Do it, and they will do it. And hold them accountable. And unseat these fuckers. I would rather have a librarian who knows nothing about politics than Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries or Susie Lee in my state. Go down and down and down. I would rather have a plumber than Stephen Horsford. I would rather have a carpenter or a teacher or a postal carrier than almost any one of these people. But that is your responsibility. That's your job. You have to do that. And we can have a conversation about elections and what's going to happen with this election and if it's even going to be a safe, free, and fair election, but that's not the conversation for today. Today, you have just one assignment. Go to vote.org, find out when your election is, go and vote in the primary. In most places, you can do it via mail or you can drop off your ballot early. It takes 5 minutes of your life. The United States government is exerting enormous power over human beings, whether that's the military or state police violence here at home in our communities. You can't really do much to push back against that. That won't land you in prison. Of course, my lawyers would remind me to tell you that on the Ignition News, we do not support or condone violence. But you do still have the power. You have the power to unseat these people. And some of us, that's going to mean we're going to lose. It is. It means we're going to lose. But we'll take the L's intermittently so we can start to teach these people that we do not support them taking money for AIPAC. We do not support them killing children. We do not support them abusing children. We do not support them funding or pardoning or forgetting about the Epstein class. But most importantly, we do not support them because they do not support us. There's a lot of tough news out there, for sure. But you do still have power. And the only choice is, will you choose to use it? That's it today. That's March 11th, 2026.